Hi guys, this is Nadia from My Body Crafts, and today I want to show you how to create a type of gallery setting. If you like my tutorials, consider subscribing because I upload new stuff all the time. If you share your version on social media, it would be absolutely awesome if you could give my channel a mention. Right, let's get started. Right, to get started, we're going to cut a fairly long piece, 35 centimeters, 12.6 inches of square wire. Round also works, but square is a lot better, as I say often, because it's got a lot more integrity and grabs onto the stone better. So we're going to start leaving roughly about a 10 centimeter, I don't know what that is in inches, a tail on one side, and we are going to create a bend in the wire. So doubling it back over, and this is going to be the first prong. So what I don't really do this all the time, I do it by eye, but it may help you to mark your pliers where you need to place it to bend the prongs. So I've marked my pliers here so that every time I create a new prong, you can use that mark so that the prongs are going to be the same length. So then I'm going to adjust it to make sure that it has got the curvature that I need. And I also can bring in my round nose pliers if needed to get the curve perfect. But with practice, this will all come. So next I'm going to create the bend for the second prong. So for that I'm using the tip of the pliers, and I am bending the wire around the tip to start with. So when you are creating the bend in the wire, just make sure you leave a 1 millimeter or so gap at the top, because when you are creating the bend, the wire will add an extra millimeter to the top. So make sure that you take that into consideration so that the prongs will line up. As I said, this will come with sort of practice and experience. It's a bit fiddly at the start, but you quickly get used to creating equal shaped prongs. And this is quite important at a later stage to make sure that when you are putting the bends into the prongs, everything is even. You can, to some extent, even this out by creating shorter or longer bends, but obviously, you know, the more accurate you make these, the better. So I'm holding on to this, and you can see it takes a lot of time. Just take your time with it and create as you go along, and just adjust until you're completely satisfied with it. It may take you a bit longer, but the end result will be much better. So you can see I'm kind of shaping it, making sure I leave a little bit of a gap, and then I'm kind of folding the wire back down on itself. And as you squeeze, you can kind of roll the wire against itself and just kind of control the length that way as well. And then make sure that once you have created the prong, you flatten it. So continue with that. So this is roughly the length I need for my stone. So this is the stone that I have. So I'm going to, before doing anything else, just double check that it fits around the stone. So I'm shaping it to place the stone inside and double check that it fits. So placing it against the stone. You want to make sure that it fits perfectly and not too large, so that the ends must meet up. Just take into consideration you need a little bit of a gap where you're closing so that the opening stays the same in between. That looks good to me. So next I'm going to open this up. So at this stage the gallery setting is very flimsy because obviously the prongs are long, especially for a stone this size. So you need to adjust. So what I'm doing first is grabbing a piece of 0.4, which is 26 gauge wire, and I am wrapping this around each prong once, and this is to kind of prevent the wires from opening up and it being too floppy. Now you need to create more than just one wrapping, but I'll get into that just now. So for now I'm just going to go around each of the prongs once to give it a little bit more strength and integrity, and make sure that you pull that nice and tight. You don't want to make the wires stand out, and make sure they are as neat and tidy as possible. So just continue until you get all the way to the end. So next I'm going to measure the girdle of the stone, and you need to create a bend in the prongs that covers that almost up to the table, just to make sure there's enough grip to keep the stone in place. So I'm using here a vernier for that. You can do it by hand, but I find that in the beginning stage, is the first prong at least, very handy. So I take a flat nosed pair of pliers, which is really handy for this sort of application. I'm taking a smaller one to create the bend. You've got a lot more grip when you're using these type of tools rather than your chain nose pliers, because the tip is quite thin and you don't get the same grip. So this is what I'm using, and if you have two of them, even better. So I'm just making sure that the prongs are roughly the same length on each side as I'm bending. So just double check that, and then obviously continue until you've got them all done. So this is what it looks like so far, and you can then double check that everything fits perfectly. And I am now going to place the stone. At this stage it's still very flimsy. We need to add in more weaving wire, but I'll get to that in a second. So I'm placing this around, and it looks good so far. So now we need to join the two legs together, and for that I'm going to reuse the weaving wire that I have previously attached to the prongs, and I'm just going to create a very simple figure of 8 weave on each side. Make sure your wires are straight. With square wires they can twist quite easily. So I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to weave a very simple figure of 8, which is once around one wire, back over the top, through the middle, and then we are going to go up over the top wire once and around it before we're traveling back to the other side. Now obviously this is fiddly business when you are near the stone. It's difficult to hold on to. Just take your time with it and make sure the weave is neat and tidy as you go along. So next we are going to continue with the weave, and just go roughly 0.5 centimeter or so, 5 millimeters, and make sure your weaving is tidy. That's what it looks like so far. There you go. Right, next obviously we need to close off where we have attached. You can keep the legs in place to attach at a later date. You can integrate this into your designer, so you just need to make absolutely sure that they cannot move out of the weave. So what I'm doing here is create a little rotation on each side so that the weave has got no flexibility to go up or down, basically. So then I'm just squeezing that. In this case I'm cutting them off because I can use the other structural areas of the gallery setting to attach to my design, but as I said, you can keep them in. And next we need to reinforce the weaving some more. Let's double check that the stone fits before we continue. And I'm adjusting the prongs, and this is the time now where you kind of straighten them out a little bit, make sure they fit and they sit straight onto the stone. Carry on until you've done them all. So unfortunately the video when I was recording this step didn't record properly, so I'm just going to have to show you what I did with pictures, which is basically what we did in the beginning is a basket weave. So we're going to go around figure of 8 around each prong about 4 or 5 times until you have got a very sturdy setting like this. And the last thing to do then, once you've done that, you'll find it might be difficult to pop your stone into it because it's quite sturdy now. So all you do after you've created that setting is to pop your stone in and then bend your prongs over the stone. You don't need to do this figure of eight weave necessarily with smaller stones. This is just a very large stone where the prongs are quite long and flimsy, so I needed that reinforcement for the prongs. But for smaller stones, like you've seen in the sort of sample picture, you don't really need to do that because it's strong enough, but obviously you can if you feel that it needs more reinforcement. But basically, it's up to individual judgment of your own project. And that's that. So I'm looking forward to see how you incorporate this into your own designs. So if you enjoyed this, why not consider subscribing? As I said, I upload new videos all the time. And if you feel like it, why not pop over to Facebook and visit our artist group, which is called Wire Wrap and Jewelry Artists Worldwide. I do have a website. You can follow me on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram under Mbali Crafts. I do sell square and half round wire on my website or my Etsy shop. So pop by there if you like. And yeah, generally it would be lovely to see what you do with this. And I hope to see you soon. Thanks for watching.